Good evening, everybody. My name is Mathew Bachert, and I'd like to take another moment, if you weren't here, to welcome you all tonight. It'll be my privilege to share a little bit about how God has worked in my life. Before I get into that, if you have a Bible, could you open to John chapter 19? The Bible is split into two sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and John is the fourth and last gospel. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is the last one. John chapter 19 and verse 28. John 19:28. After this, Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said, to fulfill the scripture, I thirst. A jar full of sour wine stood there, so they put a sponge full of sour wine on a hyssop branch and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Now, I was born in Managua, Nicaragua, on April 15th, 2007. My parents, Mark and Brenda Bachert, had moved to Nicaragua 3 years earlier to pursue Christian missions. Now, just in case anyone's wondering, yesterday I had a gentleman believe that Nicaragua is in Africa. It is not. Just to clarify, it happens to be in Central America, right between Costa Rica and Honduras. North of Panama, south of Mexico. They moved there right after they got married, and so I was born there. I happen to be the oldest of 4 of their children. You may not recognize my life, being a bit foreign, but to me, I grew up and it was normal. It was normal going to gospel meetings quite regularly, spreading my time, following my family around to 5 different gospel halls in the area, seeing my dad and my mom work to help and to bring the gospel of Christ to the people in Nicaragua. Now, Nicaragua happens to speak Spanish, and that'll come up later. But my life was pretty normal, and I actually was able to attend a lot of different gospel meetings and be able to hear the gospel. But my life really has been a struggle in, I call it the disconnect between the mind and the heart, what I know and what I know, if you will. And this first really comes up when I don't actually know how old I was. I was probably around 7 or 8, and I remember up until that point, I knew that I needed to be saved. I needed to be rescued from my sin, which was separating me from Jesus Christ, and that it was Him and only Him that was able to save me. I knew all of this, and one night I had gone to sleep, but my brother hadn't been able to sleep. My younger brother. Which is actually quite a miracle, because oftentimes it was the opposite. But I woke up later that night. I felt late, but it was probably only around 10. And my mom was on a rocking chair in our room, and she was explaining to my brother about the necessity, the urgent need to be saved, to know that you have peace with God, our Creator. And I was laying in bed listening. I don't think my mom or Micah even realized that I was awake. But that night I sent a little prayer up. And it was like, Jesus, please, I know I'm a sinner and I know I need to be saved, so please, um, please save me. And unfortunately, nothing really changed in my life after that. And that was very confusing. But I was a kid, and I just went on living life. Uh, and uh, and it kind of, I wasn't sure where my soul was, um, if it was with God or not. Um, but I didn't worry about it all too much, to be completely honest. And that was up until I probably hit a sixth and seventh grade, the universal time when human beings are trying to figure out their identity. Who am I? And I really, really struggled with that, um, because I didn't belong anywhere. That's what it felt like. In Nicaragua, my first language actually happens to be English, even though the national language and everybody speaks Spanish, which meant that I didn't fit in with the Nicaraguan people. I'm also white, which meant that I didn't necessarily fit in all the time. And even though I was born there, and I love the food, and I loved a Nicaraguan culture, I never belonged to it. And also Canadian culture. I think sometimes it just felt like I didn't know what all the kids my age were doing, what everything was the hype. I didn't know what yeah, I just didn't have any connection with Canada. We visited every summer, but we mainly saw cousins. I really didn't know anybody outside of my extended family. Um, and I really didn't fit in Canada either. And even with my family, my extended family, we would show up, but I would never fit in. There was no one that I really felt that I could connect to. Um, and then at my school, I actually was privileged to attend a Christian school, international school, which gave me a good education, to be able to come up to university here, which is what I'm doing now. But uh, even there, it felt like I now know better, but it felt like even the missionary kids that had been there, they were all one happy family. And because I went to a different church, and because I was from a different sending organization, I didn't belong with them, and I wasn't part of their activities, and I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. And further than that, I assume everybody can relate at some point, but I also didn't feel special. Wasn't good at athletics like my brother. I wasn't good at art like my sister. I wasn't good at anything, and to be completely honest, I was known to be impetuous, bossy, and stubborn. So that was my perception of other people's perception of me. And unfortunately, that was all I had. So I got angry. At everybody, angry at my siblings, angry at my parents, angry at God, and angry at myself. And underneath it all, I really didn't like myself. I didn't like myself. I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand the situation that I was in. I didn't understand why God had let me be in the position, the place that I was. Why was I in Nicaragua? Why couldn't I ever fit in? Like, it just, I didn't like myself. And in the middle of that period, probably around my November of probably my 7th grade year, there was a gospel series. There was a gospel series in the capital where I have lived most of my life, Managua, and then it extended out into a surrounding place called Carazo, and on the last night of the meetings, I was listening, and one of Mr. Sayward's, a missionary from El Salvador, one of his kids, I don't actually remember which one, he was preaching, and he was preaching about Luke 16. Now, Luke 16, there's a passage in there that talks about how there was a rich man that died, and he just wanted one drop of water. That was all he wanted. He went to hell, and that was all he wanted, was one drop of water. That was enough for him, he felt like, to alleviate his suffering somewhat. And that night, after the meeting, I went out to a stump outside of the gospel hall, and I sat down, and I realized that I wasn't in the right place either, and I sent a little prayer up, and I asked Jesus, and it wasn't, I'm not quite sure, but it just, I asked him to be in my life, to be present, and to work in me, and to save me, because I didn't want to go to hell. I didn't want to go to hell, and I wanted to go to heaven. After that, I should maybe explain a few things, but I was kind of ruled by a list of shoulds. I'm a Christian, I should read my Bible. I'm a Christian, I should pray regularly. I should do this. I should always be good. I should know who I am. I should be content. I should honor my parents. And after that moment, it just felt like I had to now live up to all of those. And I actually didn't. I didn't live up to it. And I just, I went right back into the dark time when I really didn't like myself. I really thought that time. I had a preacher's name, I had a passage in the Bible, I had a date and a time. I thought that I was set and that I was all right, but something wasn't right within me. And it took more time after that for me to realize, and years went by. I guess I can't say a lot of years, but it wasn't until probably it was 10th grade, and I had been struggling a lot. I had escaped a lot into books, of all things, because that's what I had access to. And I tried to just feel empty. So I actually don't remember a whole lot, unfortunately. But God started to work in my life, and he started to change some of the just small things in my lifestyle. Started to encourage me to wake up earlier, to not be waking up 5 minutes before we left for school and getting on really rapidly. He started to just pique my interest and in getting involved in certain things in my school's. Just to start listening in the chapel time, or to start maybe trying to not have everything coming in one ear and out another in the hall. And it was slow, and I don't think I can even pinpoint necessarily the exact points, but I can definitely tell there was a gradual shift until I started to not escape so much, and a 10th grade second semester, I had a course selection, and I really only got to choose one class. It was my elective class, and there was a list before me, and I was enrolled in core fitness, a weightlifting class that my school offered, and something in me, I was talking with a science teacher, and she encouraged me to join her eschatology class. I was like, you know what? Maybe God will be able to work through this. Like, I was at a point in my life where I was just like, you know what? I don't know I'm very confused. So I'm going to take every opportunity to try to hear what God has to say to me. So I did enroll in the eschatology class, and because of the certain nature, the science teacher, she made her elective class actually be somewhat like a class. So within 2 days, I really wanted to drop out because I actually had quizzes, and I didn't want to have to take quizzes. I just come from an elective where I didn't have any quizzes, and it was basically a free 100. So it was very difficult, but I decided to stay in the class because the Bible was being opened, and even though we weren't in Revelations, everyone always thinks of Revelation, but my Bible teacher, my science teacher who was teaching the eschatology class, she felt it very important to go over some of the basics first. And she went through prophecy. What is prophecy? It's specifically historical prophecy, because Revelation is prophecy. Anyway, I don't know why she ended up choosing this, but she ended up playing a video by the famous evangelical preacher Francis Chan, and he was explaining why a human being cannot enter the presence of God, why God can't just will the sin away, will the ability to the inability to enter his presence, why he can't just do that. And he explained it through an analogy with the sun. The sun is really good for you. You can go out, and we need more vitamin D here in Canada. That's what I've been realizing. But if you were to go right into the sun, right into the middle, you'd be annihilated. It just is not possible for you to approach the sun and be able to survive. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but God worked in that moment, and I was so sick and tired of my life, hiding things from my parents, just a really bad relationship with my parents. I really was apathetic, and I was empty, and I didn't like my life, and I was just so sick of it, so sick of having a list of questions that were I felt like never gonna be answered. And I wanted to keep working. I was so sick of working to try to please everybody, to try to be the perfect eldest son, to try to be everything that everybody wanted. And I kind of stopped. I just stopped, and I realized that there was nothing I could do, no questions that I could have answered, nothing that I could do to make God love me any more or any less. There was nothing that I could do to make God regard me better or worse, because God knows who I am down to the every single moment, every single thought of my life. He knows me. He knows everything about me, and there is nothing I can do just that will make him look at me better. And until that point, I'd been trying my best to try to find the way towards him. And that night actually happened to be the midweek meeting at the church, and I went, and I'd recently in that same eschatology class, it done brought out the hymn "Washed White as Snow," and in that we later sang that night, and I realized that I had a peace that I hadn't had ever in my life before. And it was a tentative peace. It was a tentative hope that maybe I didn't have to work at this so hard, that maybe there was nothing that I could do to do it because Jesus did it all. And that's why I wanted to bring us to John chapter 19 tonight, because Jesus, having fulfilled the prophecy, having fulfilled every single a prophecy in the Old Testament, cried out, "It is finished," and he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. He finished everything on that cross. There was nothing that I could do to change my standing with him, my status with him. And I think another shift in my perspective was I realized that this isn't just a status to achieve. This isn't just a status of being. This isn't just like a destination. This is actually an open doorway to a relationship with him that lasts an entire lifetime. And I really realized that he is with me. And from then on, I can see a dramatic shift in my life. God definitely worked a lot of things. This class or this message, this person that randomly gave a book to me. And I instead of approaching life saying I should be reading the Bible, I approached life saying I actually get to. And you know what? God's actually, like, he's working in me, working with me, and there's nothing that I can do to change how he regards me. There's no surprises to him. And so, I rested that day on the finished work of the cross. And I was reminded yesterday that that ultimately is triumphant, because he not only gave up his spirit, but later God rose him from the dead on the third day after he had died, and God rose him from the dead. And because God rose him from the dead, we know that Jesus paid the price on that cross for me, and that he ultimately paid the price for all of my sins, which I can do nothing about. So that's a little bit of my testimony, and how God brought me to a point when I just rested on the finished work of the cross instead of trying to rely on my own strength, which is, and always will be weak and imperfect.